you run out of money before you run out of breath. If you allow your appetites to continue to grow, then our ability to earn is finite. But our desire for things, if we don't hold ourselves in check, that's infinite. A credit card allows you to pull your income from the future so that you can enjoy your stuff today. Problem, of course, is if you keep pulling more and more from the future, in the future, when you need money, it's not going to be there. The real issue is whether or not that 12K continues to roll, in which case it makes a lot of money for the credit card company and for the bank. It just begins to eat into your fiscal space.
If today I am in a situation where I have, say, 20,000 ringgit in credit card debt, what is the first thing that I need to do? Rajan, thank you for coming to our studio.
Thank you for having me.
You know, I've always heard from statistics that says that many Malaysians are getting into debt today. And it's always said that it's a very big problem. Can you tell us, what are we not seeing when it comes to the debt problem?
Good question, Peter. Thanks. I think the biggest problem is we don't earn enough money. And I think that probably hinges on the fact that we aren't as global as we might be.
Can you tell me more about that? What do you mean by that? That we are not as global as what we think? And how does the problem of debt show us that we are not earning enough money?
Okay. If you start looking at a basic set of financial statements, okay? Now, if you're an accountant, then the three financial statements that you have to deal with would be a balance sheet, a profit and loss account, and a corporate cash flow statement. I find it so much more natural to focus on what financial planners worldwide focus on, which would be only two financial statements. And one would be your human balance sheet, or known as a net worth statement. Mm-hmm. Net worth is in the value of your assets on a particular day minus the value of your liabilities on a particular day. And you could end up with a surplus or a deficit. The other statement would be your cash flow statement. And unlike a corporate cash flow statement, which is so painful to try and understand and remember which bits you add, which bits you subtract, a human cash flow statement is dead simple. All you got to do is think of two things: cash flowing in and cash flowing out. And while it's not the only reason that Malaysians have a debt problem, it is, I think, a very big reason. Our cash flow is not strong enough.
Right. So many people who get into debt, do you think most of them are due to a bad habit of spending, or really it is we just don't earn enough?
Personally, I think it's the second reason. The main reason, based on my personal observation over decades, we don't earn enough. But there are also people who run companies, and let's say you pull in 80,000 ringgit per month, and you've got staff probably earning 4,000 ringgit. Let's say two staff, 4,000 ringgit and 8,000 ringgit. It is conceivable, and this is not just Malaysian stats, okay? Worldwide, it's conceivable that from a position of personal balance sheet, net worth strength, that the staff earning 4,000 and 8,000 may actually have a stronger net worth statement in relative terms than the big boss who's pulling in 80,000 ringgit per month. And what really matters is not so much the absolute amounts, but it's the ratios involved with regard to cash flow.
Can you explain a little bit more what do you mean by the ratios that are involved?
When it comes to ratios, I think ideally what you want to try and get to is in ratio terms, regardless of whether you only earn 4,000 per month or 80,000 ringgit per month or something in between. People always say you should pay yourself first, which is very good advice. But a lot of people have never actually done it on a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. I actually recommend, regardless of what comes in, if it's 4,000 per month, maybe start with 1%. That's only 40 ringgit. If it's 80,000, then 1% of 80,000 ringgit would be 8,800 ringgit. So starting with something small in percentage terms is easier to handle. And over time, I have found that the principle of money saved acts as a magnet for money earned to be very true. The principle that I have identified and I have spoken about and I've written about is that money saved acts as a magnet for money earned. Would you agree or disagree?
I think that's very true. At the end of the day, there's this saying that goes where the rich get richer and the poor gets poorer, right? I always think that at the end of the day, when you're more money, you attract more money. But I guess one big part of it, you point out very truly that Malaysians don't earn enough. And I've debated on this I've debated on this problem of debt for quite a while, right? I've seen people who have earned a lot and get into debt. Yeah, I think that's one category of it. But the truth is, I would say that many Malaysians, they also don't earn enough.
I agree.
And that's why they get into debt.
And it's a completely different strand in terms of what we
Yes.
can talk about. And I think it's very important that we deal with it. But the question that you asked me earlier was, which do I think is more important? Do we just have bad financial habits? We don't know what to do, and therefore we overspend? Or is it because we don't have enough income? That was the clear
Yes.
question you asked me.
That's right.
And so my very clear answer was, we don't earn enough.
That's right.
As a people, we don't earn enough. And then we got to ask ourselves why.
That's right. And why do you think that's the case, right? I mean, over the years, one thing I do notice is that back then, when our parents' day, buying a house will cost us like, say, 200,000. I was just talking to this uncle. He was telling me that in the 1980s, he earned his money and was thinking about buying a house. And he looked at PJ, he can get a terrace house at about 170,000 ringgit.
Sweet.
Right? 1980s. And I'm just thinking, today, if you want to buy a landed terrace house in PJ, it's going to cost you 1 million, or at most, a very old house is going to cost you 600 over 1,000. And we're not even talking about renovation costs. A bowl of noodles is going to cost you 20, 30 times more than what we paid back in the 80s. I remember roti canai was like, what, 50 cents or less back then when I first started as a kid. Remember going with my parents.
And how much is roti canai now in a
Now it's
store?
about 2 ringgit or 2 ringgit and 50 cents, depending on where you're eating.
Okay, so that's a five-fold
There's
increase.
a 5-fold increase.
So let's say
right?
we go from 50 cents to 250, right? It's a 5-fold increase. Therefore, it's a 400% jump over 40 years, right?
Yes, but salary doesn't seem to be jumping at that rate.
it's not. And you got to ask yourself why. And I believe the reason is mainly due to extremely bad government policies over from 1970 onward.
Rajan, as we're talking about credit card debt, if today I am in a situation where I have, say, 20,000 ringgit in credit card debt, but I'm only earning as a family about 4,000 ringgit or maybe 5,000 ringgit, what is the first thing that I need to do?
Okay, so you got 20,000 ringgit of credit card debt. You're bringing in 5,000, hopefully 5,000 after taxes. You need to basically sit down and figure out how long as a family, husband and wife, I presume the children are young enough, so you just need to make sure that they are fed and then you're okay. You got to figure out what areas you can actually cut so that you actually reduce the fiscal stress. And you cut to a point that is reasonable or extreme, depending on how motivated you are to get rid of your debt. When you do that, you are actually exercising delayed gratification, because remember, you're cutting and therefore you don't want to spend now, but the goal is that you want to be in a better position later. So exercise delayed gratification, or exercising delayed gratification, does not mean giving up stuff that is good or giving up stuff that is bad for stuff that is good. Very often it means giving up stuff that is good to be able to have stuff or experiences that are great down the road. So coming back to this, you tighten your belt, you generate a surplus. You decide what percentage of that surplus, and maybe it'll be 70% or 80% or whatever, you can actually commit toward killing your credit cards.
Right.
Now, when you say 20,000 ringgit of credit card debt, I'll ask you this question because it'll actually help me tweak the solution. Is this on a single credit card or several credit cards?
Let's say it's on several credit cards.
Okay, good.
Like,
So now,
what should the person do?
right. So first things first. You got several credit cards. Total unpaid balances come to 20,000 ringgit. And so let's just assume that you've got 4 credit cards, just for argument's sake, okay? And let's say one of them has 2K, one has got 4K, another one has got 6K, and the other one has got 8K. That comes to 20,000 ringgit. So these are 4 different credit cards. My recommendation would be to decide, if you can manage it even with your work and whatever else, to continue using only one credit card. Now, you need to have some kind of margin so that you can still use, okay? So you got to pick a card that isn't already maxed out.
Yep.
And once you do that, you can actually structure your debts and you put everything down in terms of the amount I owe, the minimum payment possible, and the due date. When you are making the minimum payments on not just your credit card debts, but all of your debts, my advice basically is don't pay your debts on time. Now, when I'm in a training situation and I say that, I get everyone looking very shocked.
Yes.
So I pause for a while for effect. And then I say, it's much better to try and pay off your debts early. So not late, early. Because if you do that, you build creditor trust. And trust is enormous when you owe institutions money or you owe individuals money. Let's say, for argument's sake, 4 credit cards, right? And I said the balances are 2K, 4K, 6K, and 8K. For the one that has 6K, let's say that this gives you max available credit limit so that, if you need to, you can continue to use it and get on with your life. Then there are actually 2 strategies to pay down debt. One is known as high to low. The other one is known as small to big. High to low, and this will work not just for your credit cards, it'll work for all of your debts except for along debts. Those debts are like 5-10% per month. Totally different solution is required. But let's assume that our listeners hopefully are not caught up in along debt, and it's just a normal series of things like credit cards, car loans, mortgages, personal loans.
Okay.
All of these are kind of
So
normal.
this will apply to all these different car loans.
That's right. But right now, for this example, we're only looking at 4 credit cards for simplicity. But when we talk about big to small, we are listing each line item by the quantum that is owed. For each of them, you figure out what the effective interest rate is, and you rearrange based on the highest interest charge all the way down to nothing. Let's say you got a family loan where a loving auntie lends you 20,000 ringgit, says pay back anytime, no interest at all. So that's right at the bottom. So
right.
High to low. Then you make all your minimum payments. And because you're squeezing things, you actually have a little bit of surplus. And then you flow it to the highest interest charge. And it is mathematically more efficient.
So you pay off the ones with the highest interest rate first?
Yes, but mathematically more efficient. It is not my favorite method.
Can you tell us why?
Yes, because remember I told you my own problems, etc. So I know this at a visceral level. Inside, I know, and I know the frustrations of people who are so overwhelmed that they cannot sleep and they're tossing and they're turning, and in their heads they're trying to figure out, how do I borrow from Peter to pay Paul, etc. How do I do this? So I fully understand this. Now, the other strategy, which is not mathematically efficient, but I think it is psychologically effective, is to do small to large. For those who are interested in this and they actually want to continue to do research, a lot of the American financial planners refer to this as the snowball technique. And here you list your debts from small to big.
Right.
Now, let's just look at the credit cards, okay? And let's say you squeeze and squeeze and squeeze, and you've got an extra 700 ringgit, okay? You make all your minimum payments, you got your living expenses, and you squeeze exercising delayed gratification, you got 700 ringgit. You've already made your minimum payments on your 8,000 ringgit credit card, your 6,000 ringgit credit card, your 4,000 ringgit credit card, and your 2,000 ringgit credit card. Small to big means that the 2,000 is the one that you will focus on. You've made the minimum payments, you still got 700 ringgit. Apply all of that on the 2,000 because immediately that drops it to 1,003. And then, of course, the interest will still run because you're not fully paying it off, but not that much. And the following month, let's say it goes to 1,350. The following month, you meet all payments and you make another 700 ringgit payment. And that brings you down to 650 ringgit. By the 3rd month, you're done. And can you imagine the psychological lift that you get? You know, for years you've been juggling and you got these 4 stupid credit cards that cannot get paid down. In 3 months, you've taken care of the smallest one.
Yep.
In the following month, you no longer have that 2,000 credit card. It's there. You can cancel it or you can just stick it in the freezer or whatever else, but you don't use it.
Don't use it again,
Don't
right?
use it. So then you got the 4,000 ringgit one, right? 2,000 done, you got 4,000 as the next thing on the list. Your minimum payment on the 2,000 ringgit credit card can all now be applied to the 4,000, plus the 700 ringgit that you had, plus you're already super motivated because you've seen it disappear. Now there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
And when that happens, your whole approach to life is lifted. And very often, in this case, particularly if, prior to raising that 700, you also, as part of your budget moves, you choose to save a little bit. Many years ago in the UK, they ran a study on consumer behavior, and they looked at two cohorts. One group where, in debt, but just kept paying and paying and paying. And the other one, in debt, kept paying intelligently, but didn't pay as much, but also saved a little bit of money. That gradual buildup of savings granted stability of emotions.
That's right.
And the ability to go for the long haul. And so I think it's very important to always try and save a little bit of money. Even when you're battling debt, you got to save money. And that first level of cash saving should be for your EBF, your emergency buffer fund, also known as a reserve or cushion account. So now we're on the second debt, right?
Yep.
The 4,000. It's taking all of the excess cash flow you had for the minimum on the 200, all of the excess, and it's coming down. It may take a little bit longer, but after a few more months, 4,000's gone.
That's right.
Now, remember I said you're still using the 6,000 ringgit credit card. If that continues to be the card that you use, then you skip it and you go to the 8,000 one. But if you've now got your cash flow under control, when you get to the 6K credit card, you can now shift all your expenses to the 2K credit card because now you've got surplus, particularly if you still have the card. But you must be very, very, very strict with yourself, and you must always pay that down.
Yep.
So you continue with that strategy. Both strategies work. My preference is for the second one. And for those who want to do online research, and a lot of the resources come out of the US, just type in the search terms, the snowball strategy. Method.
I think that was a very good one because I myself, when I get out of my credit card debt, I use the exact same system.
Which one? One or two?
Yeah, the snowball system.
Yes.
Because what happens is that every time when you pay off one credit card, you feel better. And that psychological win means a lot more than that extra 50 ringgit in interest and so on.
Yes.
It gives you a sustenance to keep going.
Yes.
And you highlighted a very good part is about emergency saving. When you have that little bit of buffer there, it always feels better in life and it gives you that energy to keep going.
That's right.
Because when you don't have that, I also realized one thing. You will start telling yourself this. It's hard to get out. Okay, it's okay. Let's just spend a little bit more on the credit card again. We'll take a break this month. And that's when problem starts, right? But when you see yourself having a bit of buffer, yes, if you want to take a break, you should be taking the money out of your buffer. And what happens is you start feeling the pain a bit as well.
Yeah.
And you tell yourself, okay, maybe I shouldn't take the rest for too long. Let's refill the buffer.
Particularly if, let's say, at the start, okay, let's say long term, your buffer size, your target size should be, say, 12,000 ringgit. But you're busy clearing your credit card debts and your buffer now is at 1,000 ringgit and you're really tired. And you don't want to add to your credit card debt. You got 1,000 ringgit there, but heart sick, man, to go and spend all of the 1,000
That's right,
ringgit.
yeah.
So maybe you only spend 300 or 400 ringgit. Thank God for the chuti Malaysia options. But, even with rising costs in Malaysia, and, we're all dealing with fuel increases and stuff, Malaysia is still a really wonderful place to live in. And there are many things that we can actually do that are actually relatively cheap.
That's very true. Right, guys, before we continue, I want to share something with you. You see, here's something that I learned about saving. You can tell yourself you want a discipline to save money, but it is much more about emotions and habit. And here's what happens. The more you see your money, the more likely you are to spend it, and the less you see your money, the less likely you are to spend it. And I've been telling people this for years. And turns out I was doing it without even realizing. 4 years ago, I actually left 3,000 ringgit somewhere and I completely forgot about it. Back in 2021, I made a few videos with BSN SSP. I went to their HQ, watched their live draw, and met real winners who won 1 million ringgit. And another guy who literally drove home with a BMW. I even ran a full statistic experiment to prove how this works. And after all that research and review video, I actually opened an account myself and saved 3,000 ringgit there. And I completely forgot about it until they called me recently. You know that feeling where you suddenly realize you have extra cash sitting around somewhere? Well, that feeling is so good. And that is why we partner with them in this video to remind you guys to build a habit to save and forget your money, so that one day when you remember it, you are already berkaya raya. And here's a little bit about them. BSN SSP is a saving account that offers profit rates of up to 2.5% per annum, allowing your savings to grow while you save consistently over time. And here's the interesting part. When you save in BSN SSP, you actually stand a chance to win up to 1 million ringgit every single month. There are also draws for luxury car and motorcycle, holiday packages, Apple products. And as of April 2026, there are already 123 million ads made from the draw. Anyway, all you need is just 10 ringgit to get started with BSN SSP, and the more you save consistently over time, the more draw categories you qualify for and the higher chance of winning. And even if you never win anything, your savings will still continue to earn some competitive profit rates. So, here's the worst that can happen. You build a saving habit and get paid for some returns, or best case, you stand a chance to walk away with 1 million ringgit in their monthly draw. They were also telling me they are running something special this year called Millionaire Draw Bonanza. When you save 3,000 ringgit by 30th of June, you maintain it until December, you could win BSN SSP 1 million plus a Porsche Macan. So all you need is just 10 ringgit and your IC at any BSN branch to get started. If you already have a My BSN app or internet banking, you can start saving in BSN SSP right away. I've attached a link in the description below for you to learn more. Check it out. Now back to the video. Now, moving on to that, you were mentioning earlier that when it comes to that, the first thing that we need to do is actually budgeting. You have dealt with many clients before. You've probably helped many of them getting out of that as well. What are some of the first few things that you recommend them to cut in their expenses? Or what are the more common things that you notice that they think is a need or something like that, and you got to advise them and tell them, hey, you probably should cut that, right? Yeah. What are some of these common things that we don't see?
I'll answer that in two strands, okay? I had a client meeting this morning with a very, very good consulting financial planning client, super brain. With the floods that we've been having, both cars in his house, he's single, he's with his parents, both cars got flooded because the water came up to about 4 feet. Now his BMW, the electronics are at the bottom. And the older car, which was also his and his father is now using, is a Honda. When the water subsided, the Honda could be driven off. BMW, they towed away and he said, cannot, gone. So basically, the insurance company is going to pay him a certain amount of money, replacement value. And so we were having a discussion about, new car, is he going to lease it through the business or whatever else? And he just said that, because I had set him a target, the previous meeting a couple of months back, and he was actually building his buffer. And he wrote to me, I didn't say, he wrote to me and said, actually, I'm very excited about being able to build up the buffer. So I thought, that's pretty cool. Now, all I did was share the idea and he ran with it. So it really boils down to individuals. But you asked, how do I get people to choose things to reduce their expenses, right? There is an economic quantity called utility. Are you familiar with it, or should I explain?
Yeah, please explain that.
Okay. As we go through life, we have experiences, we have stuff that will serve our needs. And so there is not a quantifiable or quantity-based measure, but there is a qualitative measure called utils. So what you have is one util is the utility that you derive from something. Let's try for a simple example. Which do you like more, donuts or KFC pieces?
Donuts. Maybe.
Okay, let's go with donuts, okay? Let's say for whatever reason, but if you decide that you want to go and cut weight and whatever, and you don't eat donuts for 2 months, and then finally you say, enough is enough, I've hit my target, so I cannot handle this anymore, I must have donuts. And so you're heading home and then you buy a box of 12 donuts.
Gone.
No, wait, hang on. 12 donuts, you take the donuts home. You make it very clear that your wife and your 2 children cannot have the donuts. The donuts are just for you. You eat the first donut and you're very happy. You derive a high number of utils from eating that first donut. And you then go on to the second donut and you still have a wonderful time. Not as much as the first, but you still have a wonderful time. Then you eat the third donut, the fourth donut, and suddenly you find yourself being extremely generous and saying, okay, now you all can come. Because your utility, your util value has actually been diminishing.
Yep.
So many of us, especially when we check our bank statements as well as our credit cards, we see line item expenses that are embedded. They may be magazine subscriptions, they may be streaming services. And because they're there, we tend not to think about it. Those are the things that we can look at first. Because if we look and we say, I don't really like this, I don't enjoy it,
Yes.
I can just extract it and I can save money. And if that little bit of money that you save, let's say it's 30 ringgit, maybe you do a 2/3, 1/3, you add 20 ringgit to your debt repayment to accelerate it, but also take 10 ringgit and put it into your buffer. I think that's a gentle way to get started. As a licensed financial planner, it is not my position to go and tell people how they should live their lives. I can just guide them. So what's important for one individual is incredibly unimportant for others. And then for some of them, it could be like, they'd much rather lose members of their family, in which case they cannot cut the watches. Now, is that irrational? Yes. But is it my position to tell them what you're doing is wrong? No, it's not. People have to make their own decisions by identifying the util value, the current util value of what they gain, the utility. And when the utility level is low, get rid of it.
Yep.
Your level of satisfaction may be higher. You also want to rewire your brain so that you actually derive comfort and excitement in paying down your debt and in building out your savings. And then later on, paying down your debt, building up your savings, and investing.
Yep.
That liquidity is very, very important and it stabilizes your emotions. But you really need to invest.
Yeah. Now, before we go into the part of investing and passive income, I want to ask you a little bit more about clearing off debt. Right. There are many different ways of clearing off debt as well, other than paying it for yourself, every month and stuff like that. There are also methods in the market where we talk about, such as using credit card balance transfer or taking up a personal loan to clear off the credit card debt, consolidating it all. What do you think about these methods? Is it better than we clear each individual credit cards, or is it better to leverage on some of these tools?
It depends on how much you trust yourself. And I used to be an absolute expert at credit card balance transfers.
Tell us more about it.
Personal experience, right? Remember, lying in bed, you're under so much stress, you're trying to juggle, and then suddenly something comes in the mail. Back in those days, snail mail, and then now emails, and then you get these irritating calls where people are trying to lend you money, etc. They can be useful. But for someone who is unprepared, doing this will actually leave you in a worse position. Let me explain why. If you go to a debt consolidator, so let's say a bank allows you to have a personal loan that covers everything that you have in credit card debt. So now you have that fresh loan. Let's say that's 20,000 is what we worked on, right?
Yep.
Let's say you have a line of credit, 20,000 ringgit, and you get that money. Now the money goes to you. What are you supposed to do with the money?
Pay off the credit card.
All of them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a decision point. And if someone does that, wonderful. Most people won't. They pay off some and say, I can handle it. And I've got money and go holiday or do something like that. Now, let's say the individual does the right thing and pays off everything. If you don't take the next step of cancelling the cards, what you now have is 20,000 there, 4 pristine credit cards with 0 balances, and an appetite that stems from a brain that has not been rewired.
Oh my God,
a few months
that's
down
gonna be
the
a worse
road.
decision, right?
Yeah. Then you end up with this wretched personal loan, and then you've got the credit cards, and your the final position is twice as bad. You've got to get your fiscal position in place. You've got to get the cash flow position sorted out. You have to do whatever is necessary to generate a cash flow surplus. And you have to be as stubborn about it as possible.
As years of being in financial planning, do you see more people undisciplined or more people being disciplined? Because the truth is, if you look at numbers, sometimes this personal loan can be just about 7% or 8% compared to a credit card that's about 18%. But like you say, there's too many friction points in between.
Not only that,
right?
the way that they sell the personal loans is deceptive. You quoted 7%, right? That's what you said.
Yeah.
You just said 7 or
Yeah.
8%. Remember when I was talking about the two strategies from high to low and small to big? And high to low is the one that ties in with interest rates.
Yes.
You cannot take the creditor provided number.
Yes. Let's say we just change that to the effective rate of interest. Because
Can.
nowadays
Then-
it's about like, say they offer you a loan at 3.5% flat rate, right? So that will make up about 7% or 8%. So let's say really it is cheaper.
Okay, that's fine. And what you did is exactly right. If they're giving you like a flat rate, then the APR or the EIR, the annualized percentage rate or the effective interest rate is about double. Very well done. But let's say the quoted rate is not 3.5. Let's say the quoted rate is actually 7.
Then
Then
not
you
much
end up with an
difference.
APR, but still there is a difference.
A little bit.
Yeah,
Very small.
but 7 to 14, correct? Against the credit cards, 18 to 20%. So still worthwhile. But you have to make sure that your position is better.
Over the years, as a financial planner, do you come across more people being undisciplined and got themselves towards that? Or do you see people generally are fine? Like they're disciplined enough to cut off all their credit cards and pay off debt and only pay
I
on
need
debt.
you to define what you mean by Rajan sees. What's happening now is when people approach me, very, very seldom do they approach me to help them manage debt.
Right.
They generally approach me now because they're trying to build a multi-million ringgit future retirement fund.
Right.
So I'm dealing with a completely different category of individual.
Right.
But when I am running, let's say, a public program and people want to quietly talk to me or friends come and talk to me, in general, my experience is the problem is getting worse in general. So to answer your question, the problem is getting much worse, but the people who are approaching me have fewer of these problems.
Right. So Rajan, assuming I've already paid off all my credit card debt right now using either one of those methods or maybe
The first thing
even
you do is go and celebrate. And you celebrate by paying cash.
Right, that's a good one. Now let's talk about after we pay off all this credit card debt, right? Yeah. After we pay all this credit card debt, how do I ensure that I don't get into credit card debt again?
Very good. So you got to know yourself. If you believe that you have learned the lesson and you are now responsible, you terminate all unnecessary credit cards and keep a few. I'm a slow learner, like I said. I've gone into credit card debts twice, but it's been many years since I've had to pay anything in terms of late charges or interest or whatever else. And I have, in my various wallets, I have 5 credit cards from 3 banks. All of them are in good order. So for people who still want to use credit cards and feel that they can, but they want to reduce the temptation, I would say reduce to either 1 or 2 credit cards only. 1, if you don't need to worry about business-related expenses and everything is just your own life, just 1, simple. 2, if you do 1 for personal and 1 for business, so that when you put the claims through, it's very simple. You can extract and you know that everything is okay. So that's one category, and that's for the individual who has come out of debt, out of credit card debt, and is much stronger and much wiser, and frankly, more disciplined. But for those who aren't, and they're very happy to be out of credit card debt, but as far as they're concerned, they just want to put temptation as far away as possible, terminate all credit card debts, and use the current feature of every ATM card that we have, which now has a chip, which now has either a MasterCard or a Visa logo, and is effectively a debit card. Then in a situation like that, most Malaysians have multiple bank accounts in multiple banks.
Oh, yeah.
So in that kind of situation, so second category, eliminate all credit cards and then maybe use 1 debit card specifically for this purpose. And let's say you choose to use a Maybank savings account, and you effectively become your own banker. Let's say you used to be very comfortable with the 10,000 ringgit credit limit, and you reckon, I'm much smarter now. So what you do is for that particular bank account, not for everything else, but for just that one, put maybe 12,000 ringgit there. Okay, so you top it up 12,000 ringgit. No more money goes in there, and you use that debit card tied to that bank account for charges. And let's say in the course of a month, you spend 4,000 ringgit. So your 12,000 ringgit in the bank drops to 8,000 ringgit. When your pay comes in or business revenue comes in or whatever else, you take 4,000 and you top it up. Notice that you will earn interest on the money you're holding. Let's say it's bouncing between 12,000 and 8,000. You continue to earn interest. Now you're not paying interest charges, no. You're earning interest charges and you still have access. So that's pretty good. But when it comes to protection with regard to purchases, credit cards are still better than debit cards.
Can you explain to us why?
There are times when you buy something on a credit card and something goes wrong, there is inbuilt insurance coverage. Sometimes if you, let's say you got a fancy credit card and you're traveling to, let's say you travel to Japan where it's safer. So you travel to Japan and let's say something goes wrong and there's a massive delay or whatever else. Your travel insurance should also cover, but there are certain credit cards that actually will give you protection as well. You got to look at the terms and conditions, but there are some that are very cool, and you do not get that from a debit card.
I think there are a few things as well that some people debate between using credit card or not. Also comes down to there's the buyer's protection as well, because you can give up a call and say, hey, I didn't receive this product. And it's easier for you to cancel and stuff.
Yes.
No. Anyway, let's go to the other part of it, which is still on the part of debt and so on, right? For a normal, let's say today I'm a 30-year-old individual working for 7 years, and right now I'm not yet married, still single. How many credit card would you recommend me to have? I've not gone into any credit card debt.
So no problems.
No problems. How many credit card do you recommend me to have?
Does this individual put through business claims?
No. Let's say I'm an employee.
1.
Why not 2? Because there's so many more credit cards that I can exploit, right? Let's say cashback credit cards, travel credit cards,
Agreed.
Shopee credit cards. Yeah.
I know of someone who actually has 14 credit cards because he considers himself an expert at playing one against the other. And this individual,
many people were like that.
Yeah, and this individual, based on what he told me, I didn't check the statements. He says no problems at all. He doesn't carry anything. He just takes advantage of it. I don't recommend it because I think it just uses up too much mental bandwidth trying to take care of all of this when you could actually be using that money to build your business, build your career. But for those who want to do it, sure, no problems at all. But in general, for those of us who use credit cards for convenience, with regard to credit card expenditure, there are effectively 2 things that we gain from a credit card. We get convenience and we get credit. If we end up using our credit cards for convenience, I fully support it. Wonderful, enhances your life. But if we start using the credit card for the credit because of the ability to not pay off everything in full, that is a recipe for disaster. So my short answer is 1 credit card for someone who doesn't have credit card problems. But if you actually are going to be traveling, whether for business or on holiday, it might actually be useful to have 2 different credit cards. 1 Visa, 1 MasterCard. Ideally, 1 local Malaysian bank and 1 foreign, but obviously Malaysian incorporated bank. The reason is I've heard of people who have traveled to Europe, I think, and simple thing, they just try and pay with their Maybank credit card and the waiter will just sneer and says anything else. And then they have to give a Stanchart or Citibank or HSBC. So it's a very atas kind of thing, but
Right.
It does happen.
Right.
But I would say in general, the fewer the better. But if you don't have a problem, by all means, take advantage of the convenience factor with credit cards.
Yeah. But I do like what you say because I personally am on the same camp. I think my brain cells can be spent on more efficient things, more important things in life than
definitely.
thinking about 15 credit cards, right? No, you also mentioned about if I'm a business owner, things could be different. So if I'm a business owner today, how many credit cards should I have?
If you're conservative and you want to be safe, 2.
Why 2?
1 for personal, 1 for business.
So you can keep it separated. That's a good one. No, we have talked a lot about debt today, credit card debts and so on. But before we conclude about the credit card part, I want to talk about another new form of debt. These days, for younger people, it's not just about credit card debt. We're also talking about buy now, pay later. Right?
Yes.
And buy now, pay later itself has accumulated quite a huge sum today in terms of that.
Yes.
Right? And it grew exponentially.
Yes.
Now, tell us a little bit more about it. Do you think that buy now, pay later and credit card, is it the same or is it the worst? Or it's just two of the same kind of thing, right?
I think it's worse. I really don't like buy now, pay later programs. And I think the decisions that are made in different countries to allow BNPL programs, buy now, pay later, are tied from a top level perspective to increase expenditure so that the velocity of money through the economy picks up and the economy does better. But BNPL is very, very dangerous, and I think in many ways more dangerous than credit cards, because to be able to get a credit card, there has to be a credit check. As far as BNPL is concerned, people at a much lower level of society can actually just go ahead and buy, and they are the ones who would use it. I mean, I don't think you'd meet very many wealthy people who would want to do BNPL. So I don't like BNPL at all. And years ago, when they first started talking about it, I said, this is ridiculous and this is going to cause a massive problem. Most of the time when I'm right, I'm very happy about being right. Here, I'm really unhappy about being right.
Now, however, if you look at BNPL as well, I've been thinking about this subject for quite a while. And I was just thinking to myself, for many people, eventually they'll get a credit card. And today, credit card, the way it's extended, it's also quite loose. It's not like you got to be, it's not like last time, right?
Yes,
really,
correct.
you got to be a strong economic background. Today, you earn 2,000 ringgit, you can get a credit card. Sometimes you don't even need to earn 2,000 ringgit, you're with the bank. Eventually, they'll send you a credit card. Yeah, right? Yeah, stuff like that. I've seen that, right? Now,
Wait, hang on. Seriously, you've seen people earning less than 2,000 ringgit per month receiving unsolicited credit cards from the bank.
yeah, because I got one myself.
You clearly don't earn.
Yeah,
I don't know.
No. When I first graduated,
Wow.
when I first graduated, before I
Or maybe that's similar to the strategy that the
yeah
UK
before
banks
before I got my
lock in
first job,
people early.
they already sent me they maybe they saw my first pay. I'm not sure, but I recall it was in very, very early, within the first month I got it. So yeah, maybe I could be wrong, but I think many people today as well sometimes are more than 2005. But my point is this, right? I thought about it long and hard, and I asked myself this question. Credit card, there's one thing about it is I can keep paying a minimal and I can get through with it. But one thing I realized about, I'm not sure if it's all, but many of the buy now pay later, the interest is way higher. It's crazy amount, right? If you really accumulate.
BNPL interest rates are higher than
Yes,
the credit
if you keep
card,
making-
18 to 20.
If you keep making late payments, it will accumulate.
Oh no, but credit cards as well. Once you get hit with your late payment charges, very, very expensive. So you got to compare apples and apples, not apples and
So
oranges.
the difference is this, if you just go purely by percentage. Because you see, if you talk about late payment charges for credit card, usually it's about 50 ringgit or something like that, right? So same thing with the buy now pay later, they have a late payment. It could be just 10 ringgit. But you have to remember that most of the time, buy now pay later purchases could be 50 ringgit. And the 5 ringgit late payment is immediately 10%. So because of that kind of comparison, very often buy now pay later will have a higher percentage. And because you usually start with a small amount, like 500 or 1,005, right? But here's one thing that I think that's quite interesting about buy now pay later, which is, say you spend 200 ringgit, and if you make a late payment, or either you don't make a payment for that month, what happens is that they lock the whole credit. You can't use the whole thing at all. You're freeze. You're freeze out until you pay back.
Until you pay back what?
The amount that you owe for that month, including all the late payments and all. So you can't roll your debt. But when it comes to credit card, you can owe 2,000 ringgit. You pay 200. You can roll another amount. So in terms of cumulative debt, I do realize that credit card becomes a little bit more dangerous. Pay later becomes slightly more disciplined.
Because they lock you down.
Because they lock you down. And it's also much more painful.
And actually, in that regard, you are correct. Yeah, as far as that's concerned, yes, because it's the revolving credit on the credit card that can actually hurt you.
Yeah.
I personally would be very, very happy if they totally banned BNPL. But I think it would be impractical and unnecessary to ban credit cards. That's my view. I think credit cards, when used responsibly, can be very, very helpful. But the way of testing the waters to see whether you're using your credit card facilities wisely is whether or not you pay even 1 cent in interest charges and late charges.
Yeah.
If you can go through a whole year with zero, you're in good shape.
Yeah.
But if you can't, then get out as fast as you can.
Thank you very much for sharing with us about credit card, how to get out of it, and what are some things that we need to do. Now, in our tradition of this podcast, we have something that we do, which is every guest will leave a question for the guest that's going to come later. And then we'll know who is that guest.
Okay.
So our last guest left this question for you. If there's only one item that you can strike out from your bucket list to complete it, what will it be?
That's a very good question. Let's see if I can come up with a very good answer. I would like to be able to keep working until the age of 75 productively. But, the bucket list is always a case of before life ends, you want to do this one thing, right? And what I basically want to see happen is before I hit phase 1 retirement, before the age of 75, I want to be able to see that Malaysia has moved away from this retirement funding train wreck that I see. I would like to be able to see a tangible improvement in the retirement prospects for Malaysians. Am I supposed to leave a question for the next person?
Yes. Please do leave a question for the next person.
I think if I have to leave a question just because of personal interest, whoever the next guest may be, my question would be, what exactly are your retirement plans and what's your retirement going to look like? Full stop. Next bit is, how are you going to fund it? Done.
Nice. Good one. Thank you very much.